Hello and welcome to This Week at the Movies. My name's Matt, and I'm going to be diving into another big weekend in October. We have a couple of big theatrical films that are out that I've seen that I'll be talking about, and then I'm going to be looking at three different streaming films, including two on Prime Video. It's a big week for Prime Video streaming films. In addition to the two I'm going to reference, they also have a football documentary called Saquon about Saquon Barkley. If you're interested in that, also have a Netflix offering a lot of streaming movies as we're getting in there. A lot of streaming horror movies, if those are the kind of things you're interested in. But I'm going to kick off by talking about what's likely to be the biggest new release this week, and that is Tron Ares. This is the third film in the Tron franchise following Tron, which was released in 1982, and Tron Legacy, which was released in 2010, and really kind of tied together the story of Kevin Flynn, played by Jeff Bridges, and his son, Sam, played by Garrett Hedlund. While a version of Kevin Flynn does make an appearance in Tron Ares, this is really moving into new territory. This one directed by Joachim Ronning. Continues kind of the fantastic graphics, but this is more about things in the grid, particularly big time AI making its way into the real world. It focuses on the new successors who are running NCOM. Eve Kim, played by Greta Lee, who is running it alongside her now deceased sister. And she's going up against the Dillinger Corporation, now being run by Julian Dillinger, played by Evan Peters, who is the grandson of Dillinger, who was the villain in the original Tron. So they're trying to keep some of that alive, but this is really moving on in a different direction. Julian Dillinger, who succeeded his mother Elizabeth, played by Gillian Anderson, is trying to really use AI and move into the weapons sector. So he's created the ultimate badass master control defensive program named Ares, which is given voice and body by Jared Leto. And he's pulled Ares into the real world. He's trying to sell this as a defense contract. But the problem is his creations only last for 29 minutes in the real world. Eve Kim also trying to use AI and bring it to life in the real world off the grid. She also is running into that 29-minute timeline, but hers is more philanthropic, really driven by the passion of her departed sister. As we open, she is close to finding what they call the permanence code, which they believe was left behind by Kevin Flynn. She discovers this code, which makes her a target of Dillinger, who brings Ares and his right-hand woman, Athena, played by Jodie Turner-Smith, into the real world to try to track it down. But the more that he pushes and the more that he bends the laws of morality, the more Ares starts to take on intelligence and to understand the world and starts to buck against his programming, including turning against his creator. Ares, in turn, ends up teaming up with Eve Kim to try to change the world for the better. There are some fantastic graphics here. There is a original soundtrack provided by Nine Inch Nails, which most of the run of the movie is just some really hard driving musical notes. I actually enjoyed Leto in the role of Ares and Greta Lee in the role of Eve Kim. I thought they played off each other well. Evan Peters does fine as the villain here, a little bit of a one-note kind of thing. Speaking of one note, that is kind of how I felt about the characters given to Gillian Anderson and Jodie Turner-Smith, who are both good actors, but not given a lot to do here. We do get Jeff Bridges popping up when Ares is forced into an old version of the NCOM server and the Flynn server. He sees a version of a wizened Kevin Flynn, played by Jeff Bridges, who is able to talk to him and decides that he is the right kind of program to get this permanence code to go out into the world. There are some nods to the original and also to the events of Tron Legacy. We see some photos and some references to both Sam Flynn and to Olivia Wilde's character, who was pulled out of the programming there. Maybe that's for something for the future. This movie definitely ends with a tag that would have you believe that they are trying to reboot Tron as kind of a franchise. I'm actually going to give this a mild thumbs up. I'm going to be honest, Tron has never been a huge thing for me. I think probably it was cutting edge graphics in 1982 when it came out, but that first film feels a little dated, and I was never really hooked by the story. Tron Legacy had vastly improved graphics and actually helped create the impetus for the Disney World ride. But again, the story just didn't really speak to me. Performances didn't really speak to me. I kind of like the story here better. But at the end of the day, I also struggle with it a little bit because it's about two massive corporations trying to take control of the world through benevolent use of AI. These are some hot button topics, probably a different take on AI than you're going to see in most Hollywood films. I'm still giving it a mild thumbs up. I really enjoyed the graphics. I enjoyed some of the performances. I had fun with this one, at least while I was in the theaters, and I think audiences will probably have fun with it too. That leads me to the second wide release of the weekend, and that is Roofman, which is a biopic about a crafty guy named Jeffrey Manchester who was an ex-soldier, good at observing the world, but ends up applying that to knocking over small businesses, specifically McDonald's, which we see him pull off in the beginning. He gets nabbed by the police. He had done it to try to provide a better life for his wife and daughter, played by Alyssa Marie Pearson as his daughter and Melonia Diaz as his wife, but ends up going to jail, kind of putting them on a bad path. While he's in jail, he uses his special skills of observation to find a way out. When he breaks out, he tries to reunite with his family, but turns out they've moved on. He reaches out to a friend from the military, played by Lakeith Stanfield, who can help provide him a new life, but he has to wait. So he needs a place to hold up. He ends up finding a Toys R Us, a local Toys R Us, and setting up shop and living there. And while he's living there and observing the employees, he becomes infatuated with Lee, played by Kirsten Dunst, who works there. He ends up leaving the safety of the Toys R Us to make a donation to her church because he's moved by her efforts, ends up getting involved with her and her family. But then when it comes time for him to go on the run again, can he actually do it, or will he end up making the mistake that leads to him getting caught? I enjoyed a lot of the performances here. Lakeith Stanfield's fun. Juno Temple pops up as she's pretty fun here. Peter Dinklage is fun. I thought Kirsten Dunst and Channing Tatum had some good chemistry. I enjoyed the back and forth. What's a struggle for me is you see it referenced a few times during Derek Cianfrance's film. He's the director. He co-wrote it. The reference that even though Jeff presents himself as this good guy and you want to root for him, and really the only way a movie like this can work is if you do invest a little bit in him and want to root for him, but you can't get past what he's actually doing and what he's doing to the people whose lives he's intersecting with, and what he's doing in general in terms of criminal activity. And it's fascinating. The end of this movie has, over the credits, a lot of real life interviews with the people that were involved in his sphere, both people that he knew personally, people that he crossed when he was committing his criminal acts, and the police. And a lot of them talk about this, and I really couldn't let it go. You want to invest and you want to root in Jeffrey, and you want to invest and you want to root for this kind of romance. But the more you think about it, and this really impacted me more when I left the theater, the more unsettled I felt about this narrative and about rooting like a guy for Jeffrey who is kind of willfully ruining some people's lives. And they don't spend a lot of time getting into that. It's a little bit darker. So this one gets a mild thumbs up from me as well. I had a good time while I was watching it. I enjoyed the craft here. I think Derek Cianfrance puts together a nice movie, some good performances. There are some funny moments. There are some really engaging moments. You want to see what's going to happen, even though you have a pretty good feeling about where it's going. You're still invested in the journey, but there is just something a little icky about Jeffrey Manchester and the kind of fraud he perpetrated on a single mother and her children that I found unsettling. It may be unsettling for you too as you're watching this story play out. So some good pieces here, some good performances. As a film, it's entertaining. Just don't think about it too much, or think about the true story too much. Speaking of true stories, moving on to some streaming films. The first of the Prime Video films is the documentary John Candy, I Like Me. It was directed by Colin Hanks. This one had a premiere at the Toronto International Film Festival. Now, moving on, it explores kind of the life and the legacy of John Candy, who was a very talented and beloved actor who passed away of a heart attack in 1994 at the age of 43. It interviews his family and interviews his close friends and colleagues, people including Martin Short and Steve Martin and Mel Brooks and Eugene Levy and Tom Hanks and Bill Murray and Catherine O'Hara, Macaulay Culkin, Conan O'Brien. It was a lot of fun. It was very beautiful. If you, like me, were a big fan of John Candy, this is a loving tribute and a beautiful movie. I'm giving this one a solid thumbs up. This is my favorite documentary of the year. As you can tell, I was pretty moved watching it. Is a great streaming find, and you get to relive some of these classic performances and moments, and you just feel how big of an impact he made on these people and the way he lived his life. And it's just really beautiful and touching. I love this documentary a lot. I definitely recommend checking this one out. My second film I'm going to look at from Prime Video came out in the middle of the week, and it's a romance film called Maintenance Required. Speaking of Tom Hanks, if you've seen the film You've Got Mail, I have to tell you, you've seen a better version of this film. Now, they changed some of the specifics. It's set in the automotive world instead of the book world. The AOL of it all is gone. But this is very much a modern ripoff of You've Got Mail, which in itself was a ripoff of another classic film. But this feels it follows that playbook almost perfectly. Madeline Peach plays a young girl named Charlie who's running a family business, a family auto shop, when a big chain auto shop opens on the block that threatens to put them out of business. At the same time, she's been corresponding on a message board with a fellow car enthusiast, and they have a little bit of a spark. She also meets a guy named Bo, played by Jacob Sipo. In real life, they have a little bit of a spark, but when it turns out he's the manager of this big corporate operation, that kind of puts a kibosh on their romance. He, of course, figures out that she's his pen pal, but is afraid to tell her the truth, wants to try to woo her as himself so that they can have a real relationship. But she soon finds out what he's holding out on. That causes another rift. You can see where this is going. I'm giving this one a mild thumbs up. I actually had more fun with this than I was expecting. I think it has a fun and decent cast. Madison Bailey and Katie O'Brien play a couple of Charlie's friends who work at her shop. I had some fun with that. Jim Gaffigan pops up here as Bo's boss. He's a little bit of fun here. Yes, the story is predictable, but there was some decent chemistry between Madeline Peach and Jacob Sifio. I had a little bit of fun with it. I have the same qualms, though, that I do with You've Got Mail, in that it's kind of an uncomfortable move that he ghosts her, withholds, ghosts from the online personality. That still rubbed me the wrong way. If that rubs you the wrong way in You've Got Mail, it'll rub you the wrong way here, too. But, I had a little bit of fun with this. I thought this was a decent streaming romantic comedy or romance film from Prime Video. So as I talked about, a pretty good week for Prime Video. If you only have to pick one of them, I'd pick the John Candy documentary because that was a pure delight. But I actually liked Maintenance Required more than I thought. Maybe I'm just going soft because it's been 4 movies and 4 at least mild thumbs up so far. Well, we keep that going with number 5, and that is the Netflix original film, The Woman in Cabin 10. This one released definitely a little bit of a seasonal release. This one sees Keira Knightley as a reporter who is invited to go on the maiden voyage of a luxury cruise line because they want her to do a story about one of the owners who is sick and who is on the cusp of a big announcement. There's a lot of wealthy folks on there. She thinks she sees a woman get thrown overboard, but they can't figure out who it is. It becomes a conspiracy. Is it all in her head? Is she making it up? Or is somebody really out to get her? We've seen this kind of thing before. This is a novel from Ruth Ware with an adaptation by Emma Frost. This screenplay comes from Simon Stone, who actually directed Anna Waterhouse and Joe Shrapnel. It has a very good cast. Hannah Waddingham's in here, Guy Pearce, Gugu Mbatha-Raw. So there are a lot of pretty recognizable actors in here, a pretty solid production. You kind of know where this is going. You kind of know just based on the premise where it's going. I like Keira Knightley well enough in the lead role. It's only about 90 minutes, which makes it a pretty easy and digestible binge. It wasn't my favorite movie, but again, maybe I'm going soft. Maybe I just like October. I'm giving this one a mild thumbs up. I thought it was a decent streaming ministry. I don't know if this is the kind of movie that I would have recommended people go and pay theater prices to see, but if you're looking for some entertainment on a Friday night at home, this one not overly scary, but does kind of lean into the seasonal October mystery of it all. So I thought this was a nice addition. It's a big streaming fall for Netflix. The last couple of weeks probably haven't been the biggest of their releases. We have some of those coming more toward the end of October and the beginning of November, but this is a solid streaming option. So maybe I'm going soft in my old age, but I saw 5 films that I actually at least liked. One of them I actually loved, the John Candy documentary. I'm going to recommend that one again. That has popped into my top 12 for the year so far. If you only had to pick one movie out of here, this is a good one to see. But we have things for all kinds of different fans. On the big screen, we have a big action blockbuster set piece with Tron Ares that I thought was actually my favorite of the Tron films. You have kind of a fun, independent drama in Roofman, which I thought had some good moments. A great documentary, John Candy, I Like Me. A decent streaming romance film and Maintenance Required, and a decent streaming thriller in The Woman in Cabin 10. So overall, a pretty good week at the box office. Next week, I will be back for sure talking about After the Hunt, the latest from Luca Guadagnino. I'm sure I will find some other things to chat about as well. So look forward to that. Until then, we'll see you at the movies. Have a wonderful weekend.